So here we are with Totally Detailed, and we are joined today by Matt Taylor from Rupes UK. Hello, Matt. How are you doing?
Hi there, guys. I'm okay. How are you doing?
Yeah, we're doing real good. And Adam, my co-host, is here as well. Say hello, Adam.
How are you all doing? Good?
Yeah, good. We're grand.
So, no, it's a pleasure to have you on, Matt.
Definitely.
Thanks for inviting me.
Obviously, we're both me and Richard are both Rupes users, so it's great to have this kind of moment with you to chat about the machines and the industry and yourself.
Well, yeah, it's going to be very interesting to actually see what we come up with and all the subjects we can discuss. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Good.
So obviously, the first one is, how did you actually get into the industry? Where did it all begin?
Well, I thought it was a kind of an accident, really, because it wasn't really planned as such. But when I started thinking about it, some of the sort of traits I have, I'm quite visual. I like high-end products and things like that. I did a photography course. I was into imagery and all this sort of stuff. So everything sort of came towards some things that look great, making things, you know, having the images that you want to have and making sure people like what you're looking at and all this kind of stuff. Just kind of plodded along and did several different types of jobs. And I was just asked to help out doing some van driving for a paint company to start with. And I did that for a couple of weeks and just started talking to a few guys about what they're doing in car body shops and the paint process and things like that. And it kind of sort of opened up from there, really. So there's lots of different sort of jobs that I did, which ended up leading me towards working for Rupert.
Oh, brilliant. So have you done any detailing yourself then, or is it just purely on the paint side?
Didn't really do much detailing myself. Basically what happened is I started delivering paint for 2 weeks just to help my mate's wife out, who was the assistant manager of Brown Brothers down in Exeter. And I delivered some paint and I was looking at the guys and seeing what they were doing and saw the booth and everything like that. And then the guys using polishers and all this kind of stuff. And I was thinking, what's all this about? And so I just asked a few questions, wondered what these round foam things were and these tools that are making cars look great and all this kind of stuff. So I got all my little bits of knowledge from that. So it's just chatted away with the guys delivering the paint and the sandpaper and all the materials. And I ended up taking back little sheets of paper with other things that they wanted, and I handed it back into the assistant manager down at Brown Brothers. And she was saying, well, what's this? I said, oh, this is, they want this stuff as well. So he went, all right, that's a bit weird. Normally just drop off the stuff and come back. Anyway, so I'd go off again and deliver it again, hand the stuff over, look at it, and say, what's this for then? Oh, this is soft edge foam we put around the door. So when we're spraying the cars, we don't get overspray and all this kind of stuff. So I was building up this little bit of knowledge. And after the 2 weeks, I said, thank you very much, and went off and did my own thing. And then I got called back in. The manager had come back, the actual manager of the branch, and wanted to know what I was up to. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, actually, what you've done is you actually taken more orders than our salesman. I was like, oh, I don't really understand. What do you mean? He said, well, you're going in and you're picking up all these orders. And I said, well, I'm just talking to the guys because I'm interested in what they're doing. These cars are coming in all damaged. They're coming out the other side looking pretty good, I thought at the time. And I just got into it. He's like, all right, okay. So basically, I ended up being the salesman for Brown Brothers just by helping out for a couple of weeks. So I got to know the product more, and I went on a Nexa ICI paint spraying course. So I learned how to spray panels and things like that as well, which is obviously now PPG. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. And I used to do workouts. So do you know what workouts are? Where you have a manufacturing representative go to a distributor, then you take the manufacturing rep to your customers and they will talk about their products. So I took this guy around, he was selling tools, and introduced him to a few people, sold quite a lot of tools, and ended up winning a competition. I ended up winning a weekend away at Monaco.
Nice.
For Brown Brothers to do with this manufacturer. It was one of the incentives. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. I thought, this is great. And then out of the blue, I got a phone call from somebody from a company called Superstalk, which happened to be the Rupes importer at the time.
Okay.
They asked me to meet them at Gordano Services in Bristol. and have a little bit of a chat. And so I was a bit confused. I didn't know what happened. And basically what happened is there was a colleague that I used to work with who worked in the Bristol area. He went off and worked for another manufacturer. It was 3M at the time. And Superstalk, Rupes were reaching out to try and get a brand new rep in the Southwest area. They didn't have one before. And so he put my name forward and I had a bit of a chat. And there was a guy called Marco Dinka who met me, and a guy called Alan Brown. So it was quite funny because Marco's the Italian guy. He was running Superstalk at the time. And he came up to me and he goes, "Sir, tell me where your car is." I was like, "Oh, my car's over there." He goes, "Sir, can I have a look in the boot?" So I was like, "Oh dear, what's going on here?" And so I opened up the boot. And fortunately for me, I'm one of these people who likes to be quite organised. Everything was A to Z and nice and tidy, and the car was all nice and clean inside, no dust, no dirt on the floor and all this. He opened the boot up. He goes, "Ah, very organised. We can now talk." So
Wow.
I think half of my interview done just by having a nice boot full of all my catalogues and so on and so forth. So that was my sort of introduction into Superstalk. So I had to look into it a little bit more, and I found out that Brown Brothers had their own brand called Bodyline. So there were some Bodyline tools, and one or two of those tools were made by Rupes. So I did a little bit of background check in, see what it was all about. And I got another phone call and I went up to London and had an interview. So I sat down in Colindale where the importer was. And I was thinking, this is all a bit strange because I haven't applied for this job. I'm not too sure what's going on here. But previous to that, the rep that I went out with, who won the competition, he said that I should become a manufacturing rep one day. And that just sort of like started coming back into my thoughts. But I still didn't know what to do. So I booked a day off from Brown Brothers and I worked with the rep in the London area just to see what the job was about, just to try and understand what the processes were, what you do when you go and visit customers and so on. And I think it was by 10:30 in the morning. So I was only working for an hour or so. I'd already written out my resignation letter. I just knew from that point onwards, this is a fantastic company and the products that they sell were really, really good. And you go into body shops and you know, the guy was doing his demonstrations showing how to polish or sand or dust extraction and all this kind of stuff. And I thought, wow, I can actually focus on something. I can become an expert in something from one manufacturer. Whereas when you're a distributor rep, you've got many, many different manufacturers you have to deal with. And just the way they did it, how the tools worked and all that sort of thing, it just sort of flipped a switch in my head. And that's kind of how it all started, all the way back in 2005.
Wow.
So was you actually selling Rupes as a brand then? Or was it under I can't remember the brand you said.
So when I was working for Brown Brothers, which is now PPG Distribution Limited, they had their own range called Bodyline. So they would have different manufacturers making different tools, but in the Bodyline brand.
Okay.
So I found out that there was a couple tools like the AK150 and a couple other tools that were Bodyline in Brown Brothers, but actually they were Rupes tools. You took it out of the Bodyline box and it was Rupes.
Oh, right. Wow.
Just the box.
Just the box.
Yeah.
Wow. So
I didn't really know that because there were so many things that Brown Brothers were selling in the paint trade that this just highlighted it for me. And then when I looked into it a bit more, I understood that this was like a high-end brand. And and then I thought, wow, I just can't believe I got the opportunity to do this. And I'm still there now. So.
And how many years ago was this?
So started in January 2005.
Wow. So quite a while then.
Which was owned by Rupert.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. So I was the first rep in the Southwest. So it was a green area. So I had to go around and talk to a few people because not many people knew the name. Funny thing was, in the marine trade, it was more known.
Okay.
Interesting.
Because lots of mariners had little shops and they were selling little Rupes polishes in their LH22s and things like that. So they were more brand aware of Rupes.
So what is your job title now then? Are you still a rep and you're going around garages still? And
I still do that from time to time. My current job title is sales manager.
Okay, nice.
So, I spend more time now going to distributors, making sure they're up to speed with everything that's current with Rupes. We've had lots of new things happening recently, new DA system, for example, to simplify the Bigfoot system. So I go around and make sure that they're aware of that, speak to their reps, make sure they understand how the Bigfoot works, and just keep people up to speed with everything, and then do training from time to time. So it's quite a broad brush of things I do. I've been over to Northern Ireland quite a few times and done some training over there with one of our Rupes trainers. We've got a few Rupes trainers that go and do things as well. So I try and support them as much as I can. So things have changed quite a lot over the last few years, and especially over the last 18 months. So, it's been interesting to see how things have progressed. With technology, I mean, we used to have a big warehouse in London where all the stock was imported in from Italy. Then it went from the importer to the distributor, and then it went from the distributor to the end user. So now it comes direct from the factory to the distributor, and the distributor sells to the end user. So Rupes don't sell direct.
Okay.
We've cut out the importer part to try and speed the process up and get more of a direct communication with the distributor, who is literally the kind of shop you go to get your product. And we want them to be able to advise everybody out there the best tool for the type of work that they want to do.
So that brings you on to something I was thinking about earlier. With the pandemic, people have been reporting fantastic sales in all detailing products and machines and stuff. And I imagine that's probably a lot because people have been stuck at home, and it's the consumer sort of people doing it on the driveways buying a lot of this product. Have you seen a big increase in polished sales? I'm just thinking, obviously, Rupes is well, to me, it's a premium brand compared to an entry-level polisher, where I can imagine more entry-level polishers being sold to these people. Or is it people are stepping into the Rupes world and buying a professional grade machine?
I think, especially over like the 18 months you just said, people had a bit of time on their hands. The weather was particularly good. Still getting paid, well, lots of people still getting paid 80% of their wage, twiddling their thumbs. Fortunately for Rupes, we've got lots of distributors that have an online presence. So I think over the years, the Rupes brand has got bigger and bigger and bigger. And people are wanting to look after their cars a lot more. They want to maintain it. They want something that's not too scary. Okay, you may pay a bit more for the Rupes tool, but especially with the random orbital tools, where they are much more forgiving than many other tools out there, much easier to use. They're not so worried about having a go on their own vehicles, and understanding how the tool works and the different types of products and the kind of finishes you can get amazes a lot of people. Just the basic run over a vehicle, say with yellow foam and, well, I'd say DA fine and DA fine compound, the yellow combination, pretty much sorts out most things on vehicles, and it's not so aggressive on the surface, so you're not taking too much of air off the car. You're not going to get burned through because you're not generating the heat. I wouldn't necessarily think that people would go out and buy a rotary polisher if they weren't too au fait with what they're doing, because there's so many pitfalls. I mean, rotary is still a very, very good way of doing things, but in the hand of an amateur, there could be so many issues and pitfalls. So I think with the time and the weather, and we've had lots of courses out there, there's lots of online content of people using the tools and the type of finishes they're getting. It really, really did pick up, and we were very, very busy last year.
Oh, brilliant.
We're well over 20% up year on year.
Wow.
Across the board.
Good.
So I think, like you say, lots of different manufacturers, especially within the detailing sector, I think saw some big gains.
Yeah, I mean, we were one of them as well. It's we're doing the leather side. It was, but then again, the problem we had was getting bottle supplies, with the plastic side of things, because obviously they were all going into the medical industry.
Yeah.
To help that side of it, which was understandable. And it's, we just adjusted and had different bottles and did it that way. So, I mean, it's just one of those things that you've got to learn, to adjust with. Obviously, you mentioned the training there. So do you go around the UK sort of doing like training sessions? Is this like a chargeable thing that you charge sort of detailers to go and train? Is it in groups, or how often do you do that?
We haven't done it obviously that often recently because it's been very difficult to have classes and all the restrictions and so on. Because it's only me working in the UK at the moment for Rupes. So we have authorized Rupes trainers. So there's a few of them about, and they charge people so they can get groups of people together. For example, I mentioned the trips to Northern Ireland.
Yep.
Chap called Alan Medcraft. He does a lot of Rupes training, and I try and go over there when I can to support him. So I'm more there for technical advice. Alan will be the more hands-on because he's been doing detailing himself, so he can talk about all the experiences, all the pitfalls, and all the pros and cons of how to get past these issues as a detailer. And I'm there generally to talk about why the tool works in a certain way, why we have the combinations, to point out that Rupes are the only company that I'm aware of that make a complete system. So literally we make the tools, we make the motors for the tools. It's not an off-the-shelf motor. The motor is designed specifically for that tool. So the motor for the LHR15 and the 21 is designed especially for that. So it's a 500 watt motor. Yeah. So if you look at other polishers, it could be 900, 1100 or whatever. So lots of people would say, oh, mine's better than yours because it's got a higher wattage motor. And basically all that is you're using more power, more energy, which you don't need for certain tools. So we get the motor right, we get the body right, we make the backing plates, we make the foams, we make the wall pads, we do everything, and the compounds. So we've got several different sites where we manufacture everything. So we test everything together, so we can provide the end user, the detailer, a system, a guide. You can't say to anybody, this is how you do it. Cars react in a different way, different types of clears and so on, and no two cars are really the same. As long as you've got a general sort of understanding of how the tool works and how your technique, especially with random orbital, can change the results that you have, then you find your own way within the system. So we know that the tool is balanced with the weight of the foam pad, with the backing plate, with the tool itself, and the orbital movement of the tool. So I think that part of it's very, very good that we can provide the whole system for people out there.
Is that, sorry, Rich,
No,
I feel like I was going to cut you off. I was going to say, is that why Rupes is seen as a premium brand in the polishing world then?
I think, like I said, Rupes has been around for many, many years, since 1947. So in the marine part, they've always been quite well known for the polishers, the rotary polishers. And in general, the Rupes name for sanding, dust extraction, and polishing, people in the know, in the body shop or different industries, have heard of Rupes. Okay, it's a family business as well, so we're not a massive, massive company. This is one of the other reasons why I love working for Rupes. It has a real family environment. We all work well together. We're all quite remote. We're all in our different countries, but we have a WhatsApp groups and all this sort of stuff. We have get-togethers when we could. I mean, obviously we haven't since the COVID thing, but we have online meetings regularly. We all contribute. We all feel like we're all part of a system. I keep talking about systems, but we're part of the Rupes system where we're trying to keep everything together. So it feels really good working in that environment. And they innovate a lot. They come out with lots of different things that, like for example, the Nano. There would be some people out there that were calling out for the Nano. But when it first came out, I heard lots of people saying, well, what do I need this for? Why do I want one of these? And over time, I think it was first shown at the SEMA show, and then I think there was a Bigfoot seminar in Norway, and that's when they were launched in Europe. And all of a sudden, something that people didn't realize they needed was there, and all of a sudden they needed it. And that's one of the strengths of Rupes, where they're looking at areas where they feel that they can improve and innovate and bring these sort of tools to the market. So that's why I think Rupes has got bigger and bigger as time gone by, especially in the detailing area. In other areas, it's always been there. It's just now with the way things are online, you know, social media, digital media, all this kind of stuff, more and more people are exposed to it.
I mean, over other machines I've got it, you do feel that quality with them. And it's what I like about it is, I mean, I'm sort of going back to almost like your original sort of PC and stuff like that. I mean, again, that was sort of like a great machine, but when you start looking at the Rupes now, it's just that lack of, you know, that small amount of vibration that you get, which is virtually nothing, is so much better. You know, because I've sort of suffered with trigger finger at some stage with vibration, and that was just from original machines and PCs and everything else. And it's just, you don't get that. Now I can use one of those for hours upon end, and I don't really get that ache that I used to get with the older machines, which really makes them stand out against other sort of entry level machines as well. And it's, you know, you're dealing with something that is a very upper class product. It's a very professional product, and you just feel that quality in your hands, which is what I love about them.
Rupert have been trying to bring out a large orbit polisher for some time. It took a long time to get the balance. As I mentioned earlier on, a guy called Marco D'Inca, he was the guy that met me at the services in Bristol with a guy called Alan Brown, who was the sales manager at the time. And really, really nice people. And he's just such a nice bloke. He's the guy that actually invented the Bigfoot.
All right.
Very, very privileged to have been taken on by that guy.
Yeah.
We've met him and spent time with him and listening to him, what he was thinking of doing. Okay, it's not just Marco, obviously there's a big R&D department around, but everybody's working really closely together. So I was quite fortunate. There was a few times where we'd bring some prototypes over to the UK, and we'd have a play with them and thinking, wow, no swirls or holograms. This is fantastic. Look at the finish here. Bloody hell, my hands are ringing. But this was the prototypes. We were getting the result, but not the user experience. And obviously, being a manufacturer, you need to make sure you work within health and safety regs, hand-on vibration levels, and so on. So trigger time, you got to make sure you got enough trigger time for a day's shift without going over, which can cause problems. So we did lend out a couple polishers to a distributor before the Bigfoot was launched, and they tried it on their vans, and they got some really good results with the vans. The balance wasn't quite there, but we were just looking for feedback from people. I think it's very important to listen to people that use the tools out there, because everybody's got a valid comment to say about things. You need to take all these things into consideration. And they said, yeah, wow, amazing. Polished all the vans up, looked fantastic. So we asked for the tools back, because then we're going to take them back, take them apart, see how they're wearing inside, see if we can tweak the balance and so on. Anyway, got a phone call 6 months later from the distributor saying, what was that tool? Because we've gone to polish our vans again, and we've just burnt through the paint. We've gone over the corner by the wing, gone right through the clear coat. What sort of tool were we playing with? Because we're just getting terrible results. So obviously they weren't particularly au fait with rotary polishers, but using the random water polisher, they could, within 10 minutes of a little bit of tuition, they know they could go from panel to panel without worrying about catching an edge, getting hot spots on the vehicle and burning through the clear coat. So that was like, wow, yeah, straight away, we've got something that's pretty good here, because we've got the large orbit, you're getting the finish on the clear coat. It's just getting that fine tuning of the balance of the backing plate and the foam or the wool or the microfiber you're going to put on there. So that took a little bit longer. And that's why over time, Rupes took control of the foam pads, the wool pads, and the microfibers. So we knew the weight of the pads, we knew the material, we were manufacturing it. So when you put that really light foam pad on your Bigfoot, it takes the vibration away. And that is the quality side of it, because it took a long time to balance that tool. And as you were saying, using other tools, it's been difficult to get the balance right, because maybe you've got one brand of tool with a different brand of backing plate on it, and then a different brand of foam or wool or whatever you're using. So there's no sort of synergy there. There's no sort of connection of having it as a system. So that's where all the investment and all the time and all the money and all the factories being built have come together to hopefully give detailers out there something really, really high quality to use and get superb finishes and make a lot of money doing what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking earlier as well about Adam with his one, the way he's got it adjusted, and obviously you were going through some pros and cons with that sort of side of it. Explain that through again, Adam, with what you've done with your machine.
So I'm one of my machines is the 21 Bigfoot, and I've got the 5-inch backing plate on it rather than the 6-inch. I think Matt had some quite good information, but I'd love Matt to share. So if we say, should people put a smaller backing plate on a large for 21 rather than the 6-inch? What could the effects of that be on the machine?
Right. Okay. So it's not the first time I've heard this. So it does happen, a few times out there. Try and sort of roll back to what I was saying just a moment ago. The time, the money, the investment, and everything being put together to work well. Vibration levels, quality of tool, wear and tear of the tool. If you change the size of the backing plate on a Bigfoot, you're potentially changing the balance of the backing plate with the tool and the orbital movement. What that can do is you can get more feedback through the tool. You could probably feel a little bit more vibration or a difference in performance of the tool. The other thing to think about on top of that is obviously if you change the backing plate size, you're also changing the size of the foams, the wools, and the microfibers. They all have their own weight and balance to work well with the tool that they've been designed to work with. So what that can do is it can affect the performance of the tool, the longevity of the tool, how things work. So with a smaller backing plate and a larger weight going around with a 21mm throw, over a period of time, that can affect the balance of the tool. It might feel okay for a while, but the longevity of the tool is going to change because it's been taken out of its operating parameters. So I understand that people like to set things up in their own particular way, but if you just look at it from the manufacturer's point of view, they wouldn't have spent all that money and done all that testing if that could be easily done. It's there for a reason. And just want to, I don't know whether you might have brought this up, but you hear people talking about the washer mod. Do you know about that?
Yeah, from Buff Daddy, I think it was. Kevin Brown, is it?
I'm not sure, but I do hear about it from time to time. And we do get inquiries into Rupes asking if we recommend it. We don't recommend it. Basically, what some people think is that the rubber shroud that's on top the backing plate, some people say, oh, it's rubbing on there. That's no good. So if I put a washer between the shroud and the backing plate, the tool's going to spin much quicker and be freer and get more out of it. But it's been specifically designed that the rubber shroud it connects with the top of the backing plate. It's lubricated, so it's there to rub on there. And what that is, the rubber shroud and the backing plate are talking to each other and sending basically a signal back to electronic speed control to regulate the dual action movement. If you separate the rubber shroud from the top of the backing plate, the pad is spinning too quickly. What that does is it can cause more wear and tear inside the tool itself, the bearings and so on. You're losing the control of the speed dial. So the tool is not working in the way it should do. And what we found over the years, Jason Rose has said this quite a few times and lots of other people, is the faster the tool spins doesn't necessarily mean the better the finish you're going to have or the quicker you're going to do the job. What tends to happen is you end up putting other imperfections into the surface, which you need to remove. So if you've got a little bit of time, slow everything down and concentrate on the area and just do the job once. Get it done really, really well first time. Whacking it up to speed 6 never really is a good idea. It's the same with sanding, DA sanding. Everybody whacks the speed up to 4 and thinking the faster the pad's spinning around, the better it is. It's not at all.
it's very rare I put mine up on full speed. Very, very, very rare.
Well,
It's normally sitting at a sort of like a 2 or a 3, to be fair, and I just let the machine do the work, and
exactly.
I find it works far better that way. And it's not, you know, when you're putting the machine speed up, you're also got to fight with it, and you're not feeling so relaxed. You know, your body position changes, and it affects everything. It's not just the machine it's affecting you as well. And I find when it's working at around sort of 2 or 3, you know, sort of 2.5, I find it quite acceptable, and I think I get the job done better because you're just doing it once rather than having to go over it and then correct what you've put into it, like you've just said.
Then you got you know, you're slinging product all over the place. If you're going too fast, you can generate heat no matter what you do with friction.
Yep.
So if the tool's spinning out of control, you're out of control.
Yep.
You're spending more time trying to hold on to the polisher and hold it in position to do the work, rather than, you know, when you're polishing, when you're compounding and polishing a car, your whole body's involved. So especially with dual action, you've got to try and keep the pad as flat as possible. You shouldn't be angling the pad at all, like you would do possibly a little bit with rotary. You know, if the pad's straight, you know, parallel with the surface that you're polishing, you're going to get the dual action movement, which means you're getting 100% of the correction and the polishing at the same time. So if you're going too fast, if you're not really in full control of that polisher, there are potential pitfalls. So people will say, well, why have speed up to 6? Why have the dial going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? With random orbital, it's not gear driven, so you can just have the pad doing an orbital movement rather than doing the rotation and orbital movement. And some people say that's a problem, but no, it's a safety feature, but also it still does a bit of work, but the ideal is to try and get the dual action movement. Do you guys put a black line on your backing plate so you can see the rotation of the pad, so you know you're getting that?
Yeah.
I recommend that. That shows you that your technique and your angle of the polisher can really affect the movement of the pad at the front. So just got to bear that in mind. So if you're working in concave and convex areas, you might get something called pad stall, where you just get the orbital movement rather than the rotation and the orbit. So you've just got that little bit of extra on the trigger there, just to give you a little bit more power to keep that dual action movement as you're going over these contours. And that's what it's there for. Sometimes you get more of a bit of a pad drag on certain surfaces, and you just need that little bit more from time to time. That's an indication that maybe the pad hasn't been primed properly in the first place, or something else. So you've just got the range there, but for some reason, some people out there think, right, it goes up to 6, let's just whack it up to 6 and off we go.
Yeah, get the job done quicker.
Yes.
Yeah. It's is there a reason why the 15 comes with a 5-inch and the 21 comes with a 6-inch?
Right. So the name Bigfoot basically was big footprint. So big footprint on the surface, covering a large area. So the 21 really is ideal for large flat surfaces. You're working with Range Rovers, things like hulls of boats and all this kind of thing. So the 21 has 150mm backing pad, and then you've got the 180mm diameter foam that fits on that. So it's for big areas. So you've got a 21mm throw with a larger pad, so you can cover bigger areas quicker. The 15 is classed more of a detailing tool. So the orbit's been reduced, so edge work is a bit easier. And the pad is a bit smaller, more of a traditional size for polishing vehicles. So that one there is kind of, it's more versatile on different surfaces like concave and convex areas, like I said. So the 21, to keep the pad flat, you need those flatter surfaces really. So it's kind of horses for courses. So you don't really need that huge orbit for what you're doing. Because if you've got a 21mm orbit and you're working on a vehicle and you're trying to do a bit of edge work, that extra throw is going to cause some issues for you trying to do that edge work. Because obviously you're aware, you know, with the random orbital, the very outer edge of the pad is coming in and out. So you're not getting 100% of the contact all of the time. So if you imagine looking down at your polisher and you see your backing plate. So on the LHR 15 is 125mm, 5-inch. That diameter of that pad, underneath that where the foam is, that diameter there is where you're getting 100% of the contact all the time. You get the dual action movement, the full circuit, orbital and rotational movement. On the outer edge, the foam pad's coming in and out. So you're getting a bit less of the work done on the very, very edge, just because the nature of the pad moving around, doing the random orbital movement. So with the detailing on the 15, that's why it's easier to work in these slightly tighter areas.
No, makes total sense. I mean, that is one of the reasons why I put the 5-inch backing plate on my 21. Just making it like underneath mirrors and stuff like that, just a little bit easier. Like last year we did a lot of Porsches, and that rear quarter where it kind of concaves in and then concaves out, and concave, yeah, you guessed what I mean. Yeah, convex. It was that pure reason. The 6-inch just didn't sit very well. But yeah, I've never actually thought of the problem I'm giving it with the throw as well, that extra 6mm throw.
Also, thinking about it, having the 5-inch pad on the 21, obviously you've got the bigger orbit. So what you'll find is that you've got to be really, really careful that the hardness of the backing plate that you've got there, obviously the foam tapers outwards, so you've got a larger diameter pad foam surface than the actual backing plate itself. Do you understand why that's designed in that way?
I always thought it was like a bumper sort of thing. Like
that's right, because
feature.
If it was flat, straight down like a rotary pad, for example,
yeah,
the hardness of your backing plate, especially if you're going across the tailgate or something like that, the boot, the random water movement, you could be hitting and causing problems. So if you put a smaller pad on your 21 and it's got a larger orbit, it's slightly more susceptible for you to possibly have that problem because it's moving much further out.
You're slinging it further in a sense.
Yeah. So just be a little bit careful of that one if there's a setup like that. Again, Rupers have gone through many, many scenarios, put tools out there for testing for long, long periods of time. And if they thought there was a benefit to having a 5-inch pad with a 21mm throw, they would have done it.
Yeah, you'd have it, yeah.
But I understand that, people like to experiment, and if you're getting what you want out of it, that's up to you. But as a manufacturer, I have to say, if you're changing things around like that, it's sort of, you're taking it out of its realm of safety.
Yeah.
So.
Interesting. Good. So, what have we got?
I think we've skipped quite a few questions there, Richard. Yeah.
A few questions. Yeah.
We're down to favourites.
Yeah. Favourite tool?
Yeah. So, what's your favourite Rupes product? It doesn't have to be a tool. Could be the pads or the compounds.
Or anything. Yeah.
Well, I mean, for me, it's the LHR 15. It's our most popular tool. Close second is the 75, LHR 75E.
I love the 75.
Yeah. And the combination of those two together, I think is fantastic. If I had to choose 2 tools, I'll probably go for those 2. And if I had to go for 3, it'd be the Nano, the 75 and the 15. And then you've got everything covered.
Yeah.
I just think it was a game changer. It made detailing better. The way it was set up, the ease of use, you could hand it over to somebody and not worry too much there's going to be any particular issues on the surface. The random orbital polishers actually are the most technique dependent out of all the polishers that are out there. So if you were asking me which was the easiest tool to use, the quickest one to learn to use, it would be the Millet.
Okay.
The reason for that is you can't change the movement of that polisher at all. It's gear driven. It's got a 5mm orbit, so it's very, very good for edge work, and it's gear driven, like I said, so you can't change the movement of that. So you're always going to get the movement that it's designed to do. With random orbital, if you're angling the tool slightly, you can stop the dual action movement. You can apply a bit of pressure. You can you can lift off. You can change your arm speed a little bit, which can affect the movement of the tool. So there's lots of different techniques. So for me, once you understand the random orbital movement, it's much more versatile. You can do so much more with it. But if you're talking about giving a tool to somebody and you're going to get the same results every time, and you can get closer to the edge, it will be the melee, just purely because you've got the 5 mil orbit and the forced rotation, the forced movement, which can't change. But you're talking about, it's sort of like the bridge between rotary and random orbitals.
Yeah.
There'll be heat issues if you're not careful. If you come up against swage lines and things like that, if you're pushing the tool in a certain way, it will cut, it will slice through things a bit more. Random orbital will come up against an obstacle and stop and come back. So that's why I like the 15. Once you've dialed in your own technique and you know what you can get out of it, there's so much more you can learn and do with it after that. So that's why the 15 is my favorite. It's the most versatile tool for me.
So if we said best product, not including tools.
Let's have a think. Not including tools, so I can't do a different genre of tools, for example.
No tools. I want
tools
like a
at all.
product in a sense.
Well, it's got to be. Are you familiar with the new DA system?
Is this the relaunch of all the pads and the?
They've simplified the range.
Yeah.
So before you had blue, green, yellow, and white.
Yep.
So blue coarse, green medium, yellow fine, white ultra fine.
Yep.
Now it's just DA coarse, blue, DA fine, yellow, and then you've got something called Uno Pure, which is your ultra fine. The reason why the third one, Uno Pure, is called Uno. Uno means one product for all tools. So you can use the Uno Pure with rotary, gear driven, and random orbital.
Cool.
That's one product that covers the whole range. DA coarse and DA fine, blue and yellow, DA dual action. So that covers random orbital and gear driven, anything with a dual action movement. So you don't have to have all these different bottles everywhere if you've got a selection of tools. If they're dual action, you've got your coarse, your fine, and then your Uno, which you can use on anything at all. So it's the fine, the yellow really, because it's so versatile. They've changed the profile of the pads and the shape of the pads slightly. They're slightly more curved on the edges. They've been patented as well. Because what we've found is that the Rupes pads got really popular. And then pretty much everywhere you went, there were lots of pads that looked exactly the same. And people were getting confused whether they're using Rupes pads or another. So we changed the profile. It's a slightly lower profile pad now, curved edge. We've got all the branding on the top. We've got QR codes, which are links to the website on there as well, to give you handy tips and a gateway to other products as well. So that pad can be used on all dual action. But they've also widened the cut and polishing side of it. So the scope of that particular product and the DA course. So you can imagine, you know, the green, remember the green pad?
Yeah. It's like that in between.
Yeah. So the blue, the coarse, the new coarse pad, the new blue pad is a new foam, new type of foam, different from the original pads. And obviously the compounds have changed as well. But with the blue, it basically covers the whole range from blue to where green was in the system. And there's a slight bit of overlap on the fineness of the blue into the yellow. So just having the coarse and the fine, that's all you really need, because you're getting as close to a one-step process as possible at the moment. Of course, there's different types of clears out there, some really soft clears which could cause you some marring, some hazing and stuff like that. So the Uno Pure with maybe the yellow pad sometimes could work for you. So you've got these little bits of combination. I just like the fact that they've brought the system down to a smaller portfolio product. Two reasons: the distributor doesn't have to have this bottle, that bottle, every single bottle that's going. You've just got a very simple system. So for me, the innovation from the Bigfoot kits when they first came out to now, that was just really nice for me, because it's nice and simple for me to go and explain to people how to use. You know, you can get a good finish even with the coarse pad and the coarse compound. It's got that range in it now. But as things progress, as technology gets better and better, who knows what you can achieve. So it's the whole synergy of the tool and the product. Oh, I must mention the wall pads. The wall pads are amazing. So with that product as well, so you get yellow wool and blue wool. So it sounds a bit corny, but the actual consumables that go with the LHR 15, it just works so well together. So, you know, that's what I really love about it.
I really like the yellow foam. I don't know if you use them, Rich, but the yellow foam pads, they've always been brilliant. And they last so long, but these new ones are just, there's something else. And again, they just seem to last and last and last. As long as you take care of them and wash them properly and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, compared to even like other good brands, seem to be like last half the time.
My Rupert pads definitely do last a lot longer than
Yeah.
what a lot of the other pads do. And it's obviously, you touched on something there as well, Adam. Washing them out. How should people wash their pads out properly?
Good question.
Out of them, and to obviously I would say from a manufacturer's point of view, you obviously want someone to, within a certain degree, to use a product as quick as they can to get more sales. But obviously, if they're going to make that pad last longer, how should they wash those and care for those properly?
Well, whilst you're working, if you've got compressed air, that's always the best way, because the foams are open cell foams, so it's like your skin, you've got pores. So what will happen over time when you're using them, they're clogging up with residue from the compound, if you've put too much compound on, for example, and obviously you're taking a little bit of clear coat off the surface and it starts to clog everything up, and then you start storing heat. So what I would suggest, what I tend to do is I'd have a pad for the bonnet, then I would blow that with air, put it to one side, use a fresh pad, prime it, and away you go again, and rotate them. And then just put them through a warm wash cycle if you want to wash them in a washing machine. I personally run them under a warm tap.
That's what I do.
Just squeeze them out gently.
Yeah.
For me, I don't know, it's just me maybe, I just feel a bit wary of them spinning around in a washing machine too much.
I'm with you on that one. It worries me.
Yeah, I would just literally just squeeze them out under a tap, leave them to dry, the least amount of friction with them as possible. Of course, if you don't have compressed air, you've got the claw pad tool.
Yep.
Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
So basically, you've got the spatula end, which is very, very good for applying compound, especially for woolen microfiber, because you have to make sure that the whole pad has a covering, because it grabs hold of the material, the compound. And also you're using the spatula to prise off the pad from the Velcro, because obviously it's quite strongly fixed, and it has to be because of what you don't want the pads flying off. But obviously the other end, you've got the brush with the little fibers and the little bits of plastic in the middle. And if you just rev the tool gently and just run the brush over it, it will agitate and bring the material off. And that's basically how I would look up. But constantly clean your pads. You go to places and you see this, there seems to be one pad between three people, and all day long, and it's on the floor, or it's somewhere low down where maybe there's a bit of, somebody opens the shutter door and there's a bit of wind, and a bit of dust and a bit of grit gets blown into it. Just keep them up high, keep them away from things, keep them clean.
I always keep mine in drawers and have all the different ones in different drawers, do it that way, and that's the way I do it. And I sort of drip dry them and then turn them round, next morning to make sure they're fully dry. I have seen some people bang them on the machine and then just sort of try to get the water out that way. I just prefer to let them naturally drip out and stuff like that. Doing
that, if you got the pad might be slightly saturated with water, you think, the quickest way to get rid of the water is fire up the tool. You're using an electric tool for a start, and you've got water.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've got to be a little bit careful of that.
Yeah.
But also, if there might be sort of heavier spots within the pad. And you can change the consistency of the pad in there. It could sort of tear little bits and pieces inside, or just cause some sort of issues. And you're spreading water all over the place anyway. What else are you going to be chucking water on that's around you?
Yeah, exactly.
I would never recommend doing it that way.
No, that's why I've never done it. I've seen people do that.
I've seen it too, and I've been covered in it as well.
We had a guy working for us that was a detailer, and he did that, and we kept saying, it's just leave them to drip dry. I'd rather, at the end of the day, you're in my building with my electrics and you're working for me, and health and safety is quite clear. You've got water with electrics; it just doesn't mix. And but he always did it. outside, rev it up, and off it went, and nah, couldn't
Because
get
also
it.
that's pulling on the Velcro as well, and that
Yeah.
can cause a bit of a problem. So
Yep.
the hook part is
Yep.
going to open up a bit more, so it's not going to be grabbing so much of the loop part of the pad.
Exactly. Yep.
So, you know, it may be fine for the first few times, but you hand the tool over to somebody else who's not aware how it's been treated, and then where's the pad gone? Oh, the backing plate's just gone and hit the surface.
Yeah.
And made some marks you're going to have to try and polish out if you're lucky.
Yeah, if you're lucky, Obviously, talking about the pads there with, you know, sort of the cleaning. For those that are sort of the rookie guys, how would they prime a pad properly?
Right. Okay. So if you're talking normal sort of size pad, say for the HR15 or the 21, even the 75, if you're getting smaller than that, it's slightly different. We recommend an X.
Yep.
So when we first brought the system out, it was 4 pea-sized dots on the pad for priming. But obviously, depending on the pea-sized dots and the diameter of the pad, it will change the amount you put on there. So if you imagine you're doing the X, because you've got the hole in the center, so it's literally from one side, miss the hole, the other side, just a line each side, and the opposite side, so it looks like an X.
Yep.
So depending on the diameter of the pad, that will depend how big the X is and how much of the compound is on the pad. So it's kind of regulates it for you rather than just putting dots on, because that could be too much for one size pad, not enough for another, and just right for one. So that's how we do it. With the coarse compound, the new DA coarse and the new DA coarse pad, the blue pad, foam pad, we recommend that with the top of the bottles where you pull the teat up, and then when you're doing the X with that, it's literally push into the pad a little bit more than you would do normally. You kind of embedding a little bit of that compound into the pad, and that helps with the priming of that particular type of pad. What we found with some people with the coarse pad and the DA coarse compound, just literally putting the X on without sort of pushing it in slightly, you can get a little bit of sling. So that's a little technique there that people could try, especially with because the blue foam is more open cell than the yellow, so it can let things go a bit easier because it's not gripping onto it so much. So that's a good technique for that. So once you've done that, you'd have the tool on speed 2, and you just find a little flat area, a little test area, and you'd hold the polisher down for up to 30 seconds to prime the pad. And that goes for the same for the 75, the 15, and the 21. So with the X, like I said, you'll regulate the amount of compound you're putting on because the X is smaller, because the pad's smaller, or bigger because the pad's bigger. So that's the sort
I tried the X method. I've always been one doing the dots, like you say, and I'll have to try the X method next time. So
yeah. Obviously, with wool and microfiber, it's totally different.
The
microfiber, obviously, the nature of the product, it's a grab and hold product. So none of this. If you put 4 dots on there or an X, and when you go and do the normal priming process up to 30 seconds on speed 2. You turn it around and have a look, you'll still see the X there, or you still see the 4 dots there, because the microfiber is holding on to that product. It's not letting it go anywhere else. So, especially with microfiber, make sure the whole of the pad has some compound on it, purely because it's not going to spread on its own. If you've got dry spots on there, you could be marring, you could be creating heat, you could be doing all sorts of stuff. With the wool, it's very, very similar because it kind of grabs onto it. The fibers of the wool, you've got on the yellow, I think it's something like 20 mil up to 20 mil in length. And on the blue one, there's 2 different lengths of wool fibers on there. And obviously the fiber is circular, and you want all of the wool covered with the compound. So you would use, for example, the claw pad tool, the spatula end, and you'd sort of, like you're making a sandwich, for example, you'd spread it around, but clockwise and anti-clockwise, so you're getting both, because obviously the fibers are moving around, and if you're just doing it one way, you're just basically coating one side, and when you get the dual action movement, half of the wool's got compound on, the other half hasn't. It will migrate in the end, but it will take a long time, and it could cause you some issues. So I'll spread it around, and then spread it around one way, clockwise and anti-clockwise. And if you're wearing gloves, gloves are clean, just sort of massage it in a little bit, and away you go. So 2 different ways. And obviously with the nano, the 50mm and the 30mm heads, I just put a dot in the center, and then just gently rev the tool up, check to make sure the whole of the pad's covered, and away you go with your edge work with the nano.
I love that little tip you give for the coarse blue, because I do sling when I use that. I'm going to try that next time. Never thought about it. As soon as you said it, I was like, yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah, it's I'm the same. It's, you know, you put it on with the coarse pads and off it goes.
Yeah.
It's because it's the open sound, and it just lets things go.
Yeah.
So if you just get that embedded into the pad a little bit, maybe even slow down the priming process, you know, the speed, the priming, just to make sure you've got it nicely primed, ready to go, and then just add your little dots after that. Obviously, when you're priming, check it, and if you've got some dry spots, just put some little dots there, and just make sure you've got a very, very thin amount of compound on there.
Yeah,
you're probably aware that people put a little bit too much compound on sometimes.
Yeah. So I guess with the dry spots, like you say, you're going to get the marring, but you could also get like the sort of machine jumping slightly as well, I guess. Where it's obviously hitting the dry spot and then jumping, and then you're creating problems there for the machine, you know, affecting the machine's sort of working life and everything with it sort of jumping on the surface. Yeah,
with wool, I mean, when I first started using the DA wool, the dual action wool, I wasn't quite priming it enough.
Yep.
And I found that it was
like juddery,
juddering around a bit. And then when somebody explained to me about, you know, making sure the whole of the fiber has a bit of compound all the way around it. Of course, with the dual action movement, it's not just going around like a rotary sort of movement, it's going all over the place. So that wool is twisting around and so on. If you've got a dry spot on one edge of that piece of wool, it's going to be gripping and dragging and trying to jump you about a little bit. So when I just, it's not, you know, not slapping it on or anything like that, just, you know, just go clockwise, then anti-clockwise, and then just, if you've got, like say, you've got your glove on a clean hand, just massage it in, and it should be pretty much good to go after your priming. And you'll lift the pad off, and you'll see that all the wool is sort of sticking up like that, ready to go. And then you know you're pretty much there with it.
Cool, very good.
What do you think is people's biggest mistake when it comes to machine polishing then? What do you see all the time and you think, oh, yeah, boils your, we'll say blood?
Well, one thing is quite common is arm speed, especially with the dual action polishers. And that can be down to years of rotary use. And it's just a programmed way of moving a polish around the surface. With random orbital, you don't have the heat issue, as you know. So if you're sweeping the polish around like you would do with a rotary, because you don't want to get those hot spots on the surface, you're not allowing the tool to do much work. So you would just cover 6 times the size of, you know, if you're looking at your, say, 180mm or 150mm foam pad, imagine 6 of them in front of you on the panel. You would just cover that area for about 60 to 90 seconds max, and you'll just move slowly horizontally across, overlap. You must always overlap because of the dual action movement, because the very edge of the pad isn't doing 100% of the work all the time. And just literally nice and slow, overlap, then go up, vertical movements and overlap again. And that's it. But if you're moving from left to right really, really quickly, you're not allowing the tool to do the work, and then you're just flinging stuff all over the place, and you're just causing yourself some issues. That's the most common thing. And then too much compound.
Yeah.
I've been to some places say, well, you know, the more compound you put on there, the more you're doing. Well, actually, no, you're actually doing less, because nothing is actually happening. It's just swimming around on the surface. There's no proper contact between the applicator, the foam pad, the compound, and the surface. You just need that very, very fine layer. So you've got the abrasives inside the compound doing the work, not just playing with each other and then waiting for stuff to sort of evaporate before you start doing stuff. You use less product, the pad lasts a lot longer, you're not storing heat within the pad, because obviously when you've got the backing plate and the foam in between, there is some movement. So you'll get a little bit of friction with inside the foam, and if it's clogged up and it's not able to breathe, you will store heat in the center of the pad, and you may get the center of the pad collapsing, or eventually, if it gets so hot, the glue between the foam and the loop part, the white bit on the top, can be compromised slightly. And again, using the claw pad spatula end to take your pads off will keep the foam and the white loop part well attached. Because we've had a few people saying, oh, these pads aren't very good, it's all separated, because literally they just grabbed hold of the phone and tried to pull the pad off without holding onto the white part and keeping it together, because it's such a strong,
Yeah, it does bite
between the two. It can, if you're not careful, over several times of doing that, you will compromise that one little area, and then away you go. So those are sort of the main things that you see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. General cleanliness, really. I think that's very, very important. And just, if tools are just hanging around and they've still got the pad on the tool and it's not in use and other things are going on and there's a guy next to you doing something else, I think, like you said, you know, you clean the pad when you finish with it, take it off and put it in a drawer, so it's taken away from the environment.
Yep.
So you know when you come back to it, you're ready to go. If you've left your tool on the side and somebody else is working near you, you're not sure if there's you know, airflow through the building and it's not quite sort of dust free. All these little tiny little things can make a big, big difference. Sometimes you think, why have I got all these pigtails everywhere? Where's that come from?
It's one thing I really hate.
Really simple.
Is when you see a machine on the floor. I hate anything on the floor, bottles or machines. But when you see a machine on the floor on its side with the pad still on it, it's like, that to me is, get out, you're sacked at that. It's
Exactly.
And some people don't sort of understand how that impacts on what you're trying to do. You do see it quite a lot in body shops, but I think there needs to be a little bit more education out there. And what I found when I've gone to certain places, it's like you speak to, say, the supervisor and you say, oh, I see you got a new chap. How did you get hold of that chap? Oh, well, mate, he says he's very, very good. He works down at that body shop, and 10 years before that was at a different body shop. I said, so what actual qualifications has he got? Is he just looking for the extra money and his mate saying he's really good and he gets an extra £2-3 an hour or something like that? Sometimes I feel that there needs to be a little bit more of a properly recognised qualification, government qualification. Obviously, the IDA are doing really well with CD, SV, and all this, which is fantastic. Something was needed, and there are other companies out there doing other qualifications and so on. I just feel that there could be another step where it's an international or national proper college course or something like that, where, like gas safe, for example. I mean, that's going to the extreme, but you know, with that accreditation, that person knows all the health and safety aspects, has been tested to a certain level, and you can sort of rely on that. I think there's lots of courses. Courses are great, but you get a little bit of resentment. You see a little bit of resentment online sometimes, and people say, "Oh, look at him! He's gone on the course. He's got a certificate now. He's a master detailer." Ho ho ho! There's lots of chatter about that kind of thing, and I understand both sides. People are trying to understand more, trying to show that they have invested in themselves, which is very important. You want the customer to feel comfortable that their car is going into somewhere which is, a very, very highly skilled person, because you should probably enjoy going in there. I don't know. I don't know whether there's something extra that can be done to give that extra bit of reassurance. I don't know whether that's a controversial thing to say or not, because Rupes do a lot of training. Other manufacturers do a lot of training. Maybe an independent training thing. The IDA is independent, but obviously a lot of people see it as an American thing. But the UK chapter is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think I've done the CD and the SV. So I do know that you have to be at a certain level, and you've got to be pretty competent to be skills validated.
Yep.
But I just think there's so many people out there that say that they are this high-level detailer,
yep,
and they somehow get away with it, which brings down the people that really are investing in themselves and getting the right kit and educating themselves. You know, they're actually going out and looking for this, so they really want to do this. They really want to learn this. If there was something that was really sort of precise and say, well, this person here is fully qualified, I think that would be something that would be very, very good.
Yeah, I think that's the way the idea definitely going. It's certainly not a controversial thing. It's something that Adam and I discuss with nearly every person that we have on with the podcast. It's something that does need to be set in stone in the industry to sort of weed out the guys that say they're good and they're not. It's like everybody uses the term detailing, don't they? So I mean, I think that's where the IDA is trying to go with it, and it's like with anything, it's getting that momentum built with it, which is what they've got to do, and it is building quite well in the UK now. You know, and with Craig obviously being, you know, the UK side of things, and Alan and stuff that we know, you know, Medcraft and things. I mean, it is building, and it is building very well. I mean, we're both CD as well. I mean, Adam's going to be going for his skills validation, I think, shortly, aren't you? Anyway, so
next month.
I felt I was going to, but I didn't. Even though I've done detailing for years, I think I want to get a lot more experience before I go and do that, even though I do know quite a fair bit about the detailing side and I've won awards with it, but I still want to get, I think, a lot more training in you know, to understand the concepts and things a lot more, and the chemicals and all that side of it a lot more before I sort of go and enter and do that, to be fair.
Well, the skills validated, I mean, that's very good. And I think the IDA are the ones that are on the right track.
Yeah, definitely.
100%. I'm fully behind it. It's just, if it could be properly recognized as an actual qualification, and they are strict, you know, people don't just get passed just for the hell of it to get a nice badge on their arm or whatever. If it can be recognized, the structure is there.
Yes, definitely.
You know, you've got the people in place to do it. If we can actually sort of hone in on that and make that more recognized, then I think the industry would be more recognized as a skilled industry.
Skilled industry.
Place where people have to have a competent level, you know, to be classed as a detailer. Not that you can wake up one day and say, actually, I'll go on a foundation course and now I'm a detailer.
I
think the industry is too big, making too much money to be, I'm not saying it's Wild West or anything like that. I'm just saying that it'd be great to have, there you go, there's the roadmap. You want to do this as a profession, this is the route you go down.
That's how it should be, I think. Definitely.
Quite something I did on my business page was I put a picture of all my certificates, and I put a poll asking, does it matter if the person who's detailing your car is qualified or not? I can't remember the actual response, but there was only 3 people that had said no. And the really bit that was quite, I don't know if it was shocking or worrying, was one of them is a detailer himself. And it was great to see like so many people saying, yeah, you know, I want someone who is qualified. But then, you know, when you see that one person who you know is a detailer, it's like, But yeah, I think if we could get the IDA to that point where it is like gas safe, and it is, you won't have anyone work on your boiler who isn't gas safe. So why have someone who's looking after to most people, it's the second biggest purchase you'll make in your life after your house is your car. And you'll just trust anybody. And it is worrying that you will literally give your car keys to somebody who pulls up on your driveway. Some of them don't even have a van, they're in a car. It is worrying that, and the amount of damage they can cause. And people are willing to let people who are untrained work on the car. It's crazy when you actually think of the mentality of it. It is worrying.
Yeah, well, I can't remember where I was. It was on Hand Car Wash somewhere when I was touring around England doing some work, and it was, you know, fully have your vehicle fully detailed, drive in and drive out within 2 hours after full paint correction and fully detailed in and out in 2 hours.
Yeah,
and they are classed as these guys were detailers. It's impossible. It takes me 3 or 4 hours to wash a bloody car, let alone do a full detail in 2 hours, in and out. I mean, it literally takes me 3 to 4 hours to. I mean, some people find it absolutely amazing that I'm still washing a car 3 hours later, and it's just the way, it's done properly. And some people, even probably some professionals, will probably laugh at me, but I mean, I'm quite particular when I'm washing the car to make sure everything's done correctly, to have tried to avoid that sort of damage that you're going to be putting in there at those stages.
You've got to decontaminate 100%. You've got to make sure that the foundation is there for you to go on and do the vehicle properly. Because if you miss out a stage, it's going to come back to bite you at some point.
It's the prep which gets the good results at the end of the day.
There's a flip side to some things. We also say within Rupes, you don't need to be spending days on cars and things like that. It's kind of business management in a way. Once you know the combination that you've worked out for the particular vehicle you're working on, you should be able to crack on with it and get a job done within a certain amount of time. Certainly not the amount of time that these guys are saying, but you sometimes hear about people that spend, I've been in that car 12 hours a day for a week and a half. There's no real need for that. If you're working out your hourly rate, for example, if it's a type of job you're being paid so much, and then you work out what you're being paid per hour, and it's things you don't necessarily need to do. Customer expectation as well. What's working out the customer's expectation? Some people aren't going to be as into it as us. We'd be looking at every tiny little bit of detail. I think all of us here are going to, really, really honed in on everything.
Focus in, yeah.
Some customers would not even appreciate some of the detailed work that some people do. On the business front, it's kind of, have you just wasted some time there where you could have earned some money doing another job and having twice as many happy customers? But sometimes it's difficult. Just silly little things at home. If I start tidying up a little bit of my garage, I could disappear for a day. My friend's going, where have you been? And she comes in, well, this garage has been changed, hasn't it? And I was like, well, I did that bit and that made everything else look crap. So I had to move on to the next bit. And you're off, aren't you? That's just the nature of the type of people that some of us are in this industry. You start something and then it just highlights other issues. And you can't leave it because you want to get that done. But if the customer doesn't know about it and won't see that, don't spend your time doing it if you're not going to be paid for it. If you can get paid for it, fantastic. And if the customer appreciates it, wonderful. But it's kind of that management side. So, it's wanting to do a fantastic job and having the feeling, I can't let that car go because I know I wouldn't accept it. But with what is the customer paying for? What have you said you're going to do? Have you done that? If you've done that, stop. The customer comes along and then they say, well, okay, that's great. And then if you feel that they are getting more into it, you can say, well, of course, there's a next stage here where we could sort these little bits out as well. And then it becomes more of a business, money coming into the business, and you can invest in yourself. I've just thought of something else. One thing that kind of niggles me a little bit, just a little bit, it just surprises me, is if a tool breaks down, maybe just brushes or something like that, the brushes need changing, and a professional detailer doesn't have a backup tool. That surprises me. It doesn't annoy me, it just surprises me a little bit that if I was set up, that I would always have more than one tool. Because if that one tool's doing all your work for you, it definitely needs to be serviced at some point. Rupes tools need to be serviced. They need to go and have a good clean out. The bearings might need changing over a number of years or whatever, carbon brushes and so on. When that tool's out of action, what do you do? So a couple of times when I've talked to my service centers, they say, oh, the guy's kicking off because he wants a replacement tool because he doesn't have another tool to use. He's got 3 Aston Martins booked in for the end of the week or something, and his tool needs a service. The service center should be providing a tool for him to use. And my first reaction is, surely you've got another tool. If you're doing that kind of work, I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think they should have a backup tool. It's not.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
glad it's not just me.
I wouldn't even dream. It's like taking a power washer into somebody. I wouldn't dream. I've never done it in all the years, or in my Hoovers. I mean, I've got like backup Hoover after backup Hoover. I've never ever gone in and said, "There's my Hoover. Can I borrow one while mine's in being serviced?" It's very rare to ask for a loan car when my car goes in for a service. It's just, let alone a machine polish. No.
I think having a drawer full of brushes as well.
Yeah.
Is a good one.
Brushes, yeah, definitely. It's something I'm guilty of, is the brushes. I haven't got any. I mean, I should have spare brushes in, really, to be fair, and it's something. But
Bigfoot.
Yeah, but I've got like loads of different machines as well. So I mean, not just the Rupes machines. I mean, I've got other machines as well, other brands. So I mean, I do have backup machines. So if one does have to go off, I've got another machine that I can use. So I mean,
Things can break down from time to time. You can't. There's no rhyme or reason to it.
Yeah,
but,
they do.
If you got it, fantastic. But the brushes for the Bigfoots is just, the part number is 47.105.
I wrote it down.
Out there listening, pair of them. The thing you really should do is, obviously, I would recommend it goes to an approved service centre. The carbon brushes are reasonably easy to change yourself if you're quite savvy. I wouldn't want people to keep using a tool and using a tool and using a tool until it starts spluttering and the electric connection is going. What can happen is that, obviously, that can cause a problem with the armature. You could score the armature, and then the future contact with fresh brushes can be slightly compromised. So if you're using your polisher a lot, just give it a little bit of care and attention. Get it looked at, get it cleaned up, keep it serviced, keep it sweet. You'll be going for many, many, many years.
And you could blow that with an airline, could you?
Sorry?
Well? You could blow the machine out regularly with an airline, could you, if you wanted to?
As long as you have to be careful, because you could be blowing stuff further into the machine, which could cause a problem. For me personally, if I've bought my own tools, I'd probably find out where my service centre is, and just have a chat with them and say, I'm using it so many hours a day. What do you recommend? What sort of cycle would you recommend me just dropping the tool in and just giving it a bit of a once over? Just things like that. I mean, it's just little things that just keep things going.
And I guess there's several of those centres in the UK, is there?
There's two, actually.
Right, okay, yep.
Yeah, so there's a company called Power Tool Sales. They're on the website. So if you go onto the Rupes website, you'll see all the UK distributors, and there's a couple there with spanners next to them.
All right, okay.
In their service centre.
Cool.
And another one called Steve's Repairs. So they basically do all the servicing repairs in the UK. So just keep things sweet. I mean, if you're savvy, it's up to you. But carbon brushes can be changed reasonably easy if you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But just if people say that Rupes tools are quite expensive, they're high end. Just service it like you would service your BMW or your Aston Martin or something like that. Just give it a little look over from time to time. Just give it a bit of care.
So when's obviously with COVID and things, when's the next sort of training session and whereabouts? Are you looking at any at the moment? Or
I've not booked any myself, but there is going to be, Alan Metcalf is doing one in Northern Ireland towards the end of July. I think.
Wax and polish, Matt Levy's.
Yeah,
that's the one. Yeah.
Steady. Just checking my diary. I think it's the 25th. It's a Sunday. 25th of July. That's a Rupes training day there. But the authorised Rupes trainers have their own calendars. I know Alan is quite vocal. He's out there. He's making people know about everything. So he's looking to do lots of different courses. So if people reach out to him, if there's a group of people that think, right, let's get together and wouldn't mind getting all clued up with the Rupes training and so on. Whether there's any more events coming up, like seminars and things like that, that's obviously going to be looked at. We'll see what we can and can't do. But certainly on our Rupes website, there will be announcements for things like that. And then, we'll wait and see how the UK opens up, see what happens on the 21st of June or whatever it is.
Yeah.
when things may open up even more, and then we can take it from there.
Yeah, because I have to say one thing. Like both Adam and myself are from Hull, and we've never sort of. I mean, I could be wrong here, but I mean, Adam might correct me. But I've never known anything like a Rupes sort of training course over in this sort of neck of the woods.
Right, that's something that I can talk to the Rupes trainers about, because I know at least one of them is very keen to go around lots of different areas.
Yep.
If there's a good collection of people,
yep,
it can be organised, and then the training session can be set up, and a bit of feedback between the trainer and yourselves about what you would like to cover. Then it can be almost like a bespoke training day with a certain thing.
Nice.
So you've got a few people that you know want to get together, have a discussion about what you want to cover, and then it can be tailored to what you want to cover.
Yeah, it'd be certain. I mean, we've both obviously got detailing facilities. I mean, Adam's obviously got the ramp, I haven't. So I mean, if it's a ramp needed, then that would probably. I mean, I'm sort of giving his place away here, but I'm sure he'd be happy to, sort of accommodate there if time allows, and because he's got the ramp to get a car on, which is obviously better back a month than another. Whereas I haven't got the ramp, so it's.
I've got fancy flooring though, Richard.
You what?
You have got fancy flooring though.
Yeah, I've got fancy flooring. Yeah, so I've got the fancy flooring. We will get a ramp at some point, but not just yet. But yeah,
we've got also on the Rupes website. Have you heard of the Rupes core training?
Oh, the core training is fantastic.
Yeah, so continuous Rupes education it stands for. That's very, very useful, and there's we've got our own YouTube channel as well. There's lots of short films, lots of educational bits and pieces on there. You can subscribe to the newsletter. We have different webinars periodically. I think lots of things are going that way just because of
COVID,
the way things are at the moment. I've got used to it now. At first, it was a little bit, why can't we just go around and do things? Things have changed a little bit, and it's very educational. There's lots of different things that they cover, and if you log in on the day, there's lots of question and answer sessions as well. If you do subscribe to a particular webinar or a core training session and you can't make it on that particular day, as long as you've registered before that event, you can watch it on demand. Okay. So what will happen is after that training event, you probably know because you've probably seen them, you'll get an email which is your own personal link to that core training, and then you can watch it, pause it, rewind it, do whatever you want, and drink in as much of the information as possible. So Dylan, in America, and Jason and Fabrizio and lots of different people are contributing to that. So there's always something on there to look at, always something to sort of research and see what you can do with it. And you're not alone out there. There's lots of information for people if you need any help.
Yeah, good. That's very good.
The core training is really good, and anyone who wants to get into polishing, I recommend it. Even if you've been polishing for years, I recommend it. There's loads of information on it.
Yeah, I think it's geared towards everybody. There's a few places I've been to, and when they've asked about my background, and they say, "Well, I've been polishing cars for 30 years. What can you tell me?" I say, "Well, all I can tell you is that this polish has been out for 6-7 years. So things are moving on, things are changing. As long as we keep an open mind, embrace the technology, look at what's available, it's all there to help. It's not there to take anybody's skill away or anything like that. It's there to help to get a better finish for the customer, a better end user experience, less fatigue, to earn more money, to get more work in, or to work at the pace you want to work at. It's not there as any hindrance whatsoever. It's not trying to take away the black art of rotary polishing. Rupes make rotary polishes. We don't say that there's anything wrong with rotary polishes. You can do a fantastic job with rotary polishes. It's just a Ranger product now, and to suit the type of tool you want to work with.
Fantastic. This has been brilliant tonight. I've sat here in awe, thinking, oh, wow, I know something else now. It's been brilliant, full of information.
It's one of the first times I've actually ended up with about 5 sheets of paper with all sorts of notes.
I've seen you scribbling away.
I have to get somebody to go and get me a pen, and they're stood over there handing me this pen like this.
No, you must edit that bit out, or in that bit, and edit that bit out.
Swapping pads around and pieces of paper and questions and things. I'm getting the pen so I can write, because I'm right-handed. So I've made all sorts of notes tonight. It's quite interesting, definitely.
Also, I don't know whether you might have seen some of the posts out there. There's some DA trial kits available at the moment through some distributors. Have you seen them?
I haven't, no.
So basically, it's a little package. So you get a litre bottle of DA Coarse or DA Fine or Uno Pure and the relative pads and a claw pad in there as well. There's a information card in there with a QR code and a link to the Rupes Paint App. Are you familiar with it?
Oh, yeah.
So you can select the type of clear you're working on or the paint, the type of imperfections on the surface, and it will give you a pad and a compound combination. You can also select the tool you're using. So that's very, very useful.
Yeah, very useful.
So within the DA trial kits, you've got all that information, all the links to the website and the paint app. And yeah, it's an opportunity for people to try the system if they haven't tried it already.
Like I say, with information like that and the app and the paint app and things, I mean, there's no reason why somebody should get it wrong. I mean, as long as they follow the system and just look at all these videos and tutorials that are out there, that, you know, and it's a great starting, isn't it? Point. You know, even if you don't go on a physical course, it's a huge starting help, you know, up the ladder, isn't it, to learn? It's
a great starting point, and then obviously it might give you the hunger to go and find out more information.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier on with the random orbital polisher, there's lots of things you can change the parameters with your technique. You know, arm speed, the amount of compound you put on the tool, the speed of the tool, the pressure on the tool, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So you can once you sort of been bitten by the bug, there's lots of things that you can learn and improve your skills with. You know, for all DA polishing, because there's so many different techniques you can do.
Good, very good.
I think that's going to take us to our closing question, because I think before long, Matt, me and you are going to be sat in the dark here.
Oh yeah, it's getting dark, isn't it?
It's both getting darker and darker, and I'm thinking, what's going on?
And this is my light switches. This is not this one; it's a different one.
You need big gadget, go gadget.
Yeah. So we have a closing question, Matt. We've been asking everyone it, and then we've kind of looked at it and gone, we keep asking this question, let's make it a closeout question. We've tweaked it a little bit. And I'm quite interested to hear this one, because it's from a kind of like a different background rather than, you know, a detailer who owns his own business, for say. So if you could have told yourself one piece of information when you first started in the industry, what would that be?
Right. That's quite a question, isn't it, really, when you think about it?
Yeah.
It's two-pronged for me. Sorry, it's not going to be one thing. It's, well, don't be scared to fail.
Yep.
Because, you know, I took failure personally a few times early on in my career. It's like, I used to beat myself up over it and then just get frustrated. But as I've got older, I've got a lot older now, I understand that nothing gets done that's of any sort of stature, that's something that's really, really good straight away. There's lots of trials and errors. And I just feel that with certain parts of my career, I probably slowed my career down a little bit by getting caught up in the fact that I did something wrong. I think if you understand what you did wrong, you've learned a lesson and you won't be doing that again, and it will help you in the future. And part of that is listening to the people you work with or your customers that you're dealing with. So you take on board feedback and understand where things could have been done a bit better without taking it to heart too much, because you know it's a progression.
Yep.
For me, I guess it's called maturity at the end of the day. I feel like if I could have been a bit more mature in my earlier days and understood the trials and errors and the failures that you will have, which will then give you the pathway to the successful parts of your career. I think that's what I would have with me if I could go back and do it all again.
I absolutely agree. Completely agree. Couldn't agree more.
It's surprising how many people have said that now.
It is, yeah. Nearly everybody's the same, and I would say that's exactly with my career. I think you know, Matt sort of hit the nail on the head there. I think it's a maturity thing. You know, when you're a lot younger, and I think if I could go back in time and go back to when I was like 18, I think that's the one thing I would sort of do is to sort of have that, is to accept the failures, and be a little bit, and be a lot more mature about what's happening and the process. And I think that would have helped a lot of people. It would certainly have helped me enormously, definitely. And if that's one thing that I would give advice to people, it's the same sort of thing, I think.
I think some of the failures in my earlier years prevented me from pushing some things that I should have done.
Absolutely.
Maybe take a step back and be a bit more wary. And then when I look back now and say, that mistake I made there, if I just jumped to how I was feeling, I could have progressed a bit quicker there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Just
getting rid of that fear factor of, when you're young, you want to be successful all the time. You want to get everything right. You want to impress your boss, or whatever sort of situation you're in. I think you become a much stronger person, and you understand yourself more, and you can learn. You can see things coming towards you a lot more once you embrace it.
Yeah.
If you're scared of it, you're looking away.
Yeah. Down to ego, isn't it? A lot of the time, it's just understand that sometimes your ego, you have to have it bruised to learn. So, you've got to go forward with it.
100%.
Yeah, definitely. Good. So, Matt, obviously, Rupe's website. Let everybody know where it is, and if there's a social media network they can get onto, YouTube channel. Give everybody those details so they can find us, find you.
It's just www.rupes.com. So you go on there, you've got all the links for everything. Okay. If people are looking for distributors, there's a distributor finder on there, so you can find your local distributor. There's items about the products. There's lots of how-to videos, all sorts of things. It's all from that base. So go on there, have a little look, explore it. There's lots of new product. There's more product coming out soon. So just watch this space, and hope you enjoy using all the Rupes products, because we're working really hard to make sure everybody enjoys what they do and to get the best possible finish that they can.
Excellent. That's great. Well, I think that's about it. And thank you very much, Matt. It's been an absolute pleasure. To me, it's been a fantastic podcast tonight. Definitely. I don't know about you, Adam, but
I've learned.
Yeah, I've learned quite a bit. Yeah, and I'm sure everybody else is going to love this one as well. It's going to be a good one. So thank you very much, Matt. It's been much appreciated.
Yeah,
and
thank you, Matt.
We'll get it.
Thank you very much. You've been very kind.
No problem. You're very welcome. Thank you.